My next guest is an associate professor of Spanish at Suffolk University who recently launched her new book titled Theater of the Borderlands: Conflict, Violence, and Healing. Now, the book, as you can tell by the title, not only focuses on the themes described in the title, but also looks at how dramatists, specifically from the northern Mexico border territories, write about theater. Now, the book analyzes the way these northern border playwrights present the U.S.-Mexico borderlands in a socio-historical and political context. Now, some of the themes include the indigenous, border crossings, the city of Tijuana, and of course the violence present at our borders. To tell us more about this very unique perspective, we now welcome author and Spanish profesora, Iani del Rosario Moreno. Buenos días.
Gracias, muchas gracias por invitarme, Alberto.
Yeah. Primero, antes que nada, quiero empezar. Usted no es mexicana.
No.
Me acabo de enterar, usted es de El Salvador.
Sí, soy de San Salvador, El Salvador.
Exactamente. So, how did, let's kind of backtrack a little bit. How did you get interested in this subject matter, which is very, very unique?
Well, at the university, when I was in graduate school, I had this professor that was very famous, and then he focused on Latin American theater. So when I was writing my dissertation, I focused on the theater of Mexico, because those are the big big countries that produce theater are Mexico and Argentina, Cuba, and you were just talking about Cuba in the previous segment, and Brazil. And so I happened to be in Mexico, and I attended a conference, and then I met this very famous younger playwright then. And then he said, do you want to read my play? It had won an international prize. And so he sent me his play, and then I started reading it, and I just became transfixed by what he was talking about, and then it took place in the U.S.-Mexico border, and it was talking about the plight of the immigrants.
And that's how you started to look at the themes and how they're portrayed through art and theater. So what's some of them? I know I mentioned some in the intro, but what's some of the prevalent and very obvious ones?
They are trying to find who they are by the geographical region, and so one of the themes that they're mentioning are going to be the immigrants' journeys to cross the United States.
So the entire chronicling of men, women, and children now.
Yes, yes, and I think that that's when I started to pay attention to the border, because I had never really cared to learn as much as I should have. I did take a course when I was in college, but I was a typical undergraduate. But then when I started reading their stories, I could just see how these people were having to escape Mexico and Central America to try to find a better life here in the United States, and they were presenting this in the theater. And I felt in a way that it came more to life, and it was more convincing sometimes than even seeing a documentary or hearing the interview of somebody, because of the way that they were portrayed.
Yeah. Now the book is called Theater of the Borderlands, and you do harp on conflict, violence, and healing right in the title. And so I know we have a photo of a particular scene of one of the plays, and so tell me a little bit more about this play and this scene right here.
So one of the themes that I found that the playwrights were writing about was violence towards women, what it's called femicides, which are these heinous crimes of men towards women, but it's with this hatred, this violence, and just by the mere fact that they're women. And so what you see here, the picture that you showed, is a play called Jauría. And so it portrays these characters. They all have names of animals, and it's like pack animals. One of them has one is a wolf, one is called hyena. And they are just there to try to take advantage of women. They live in this world, this is kind of degenerate world. And the playwright wanted to just show the way that women are objectified and the violence with which some women are treated around the world.
So now you talk about it in your book.
Yeah, I do.
You kind of expose these themes and this undercurrent. For those who have if you've never read the book and you're listening to it and you're watching this now, what do you think people are going to get out of the book by reading it?
I hope that they get a clear picture of what the U.S. and Mexico border is. I hope that they are able to see, what are even the names of the different states in Mexico that border the United States, how the stories are really, like, you have these twin cities and they have the same history because they used to be one before 1848. And so that they can see that there's similar characteristics of people that live on both sides of the border, but at the same time, some of the very difficulties that they're dealing with right now, which is like the violence due to the drug cartels and gangs that are there at the border, and not just at the border, in other parts of Mexico as well.
What did you learn that you didn't think you were going to learn? What surprised you?
I didn't really know much about the history of the Native American tribes at the border, and I didn't know that Mexicans, there was only one. In Mexico, you cannot really have reservations like you do in the United States, but there's only one nation, the Yaqui Nation. They're the only ones in Mexico that are able to, and I learned about their history, and to me that was just incredible, because I thought that these tribes were eliminated, but I learned about the rich culture, and they continue, they live on.
Yeah.
Even
and
now.
and this, all of these conflicts and so forth happening on the border, it's not just about Mexicans, it's a lot of the Central
Yes.
Americans who come through there and then have to pass through there, right? So some of you, like from El Salvador.
I agree, and then I had to, because I had so much information, I discussed 30 plays, so I had to kind of like not talk about those plays, and then I think that that's what's going to come next.
Volume number 2.
Yeah.
Volume number 2.
Because these playwrights are writing about the southern border, what is happening at the border with Mexico and Guatemala, and they're talking about all the Central Americans and their plight.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put up, again, I have a copy here, but I'd love to put it up on screen because it is available on Amazon.com. It's available at Barnes & Nobles, and I know there's a website in the book as well, but you can find it very easily, right?
Yes, and then we're doing a dramatic reading on Tuesday, the 29th.
Oh, really?
At the Modern Theater here at Suffolk of one of the plays.
Okay, so Tuesday. What time is that?
4 o'clock, and it's called Lomas de Poleo, and it talks about the femicides of Ciudad Juarez.
Very good. Well, I wish you a lot of luck. Very interesting. And
Thank you so
thank you for
much.
coming by.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
All right, thank you. When we come back, we'll do a little transition because I party in Villa Victoria. President Obama is not the only one dancing to tango, as Iba promotes an upcoming new tango show with the participation of a Grammy award-winning pianist. All the details and more coming right up, right here on Revista Hispana.